Okay, so let's listen to a teaching first and then we'll meditate for a while. I'm putting it on. So I think it's better to watch this one first. Yeah.
And said the practice of meditation and the Dharma altogether remove not only suffering but the root of suffering or the cause of suffering. So this is to say not just the outer manifestations of suffering. In fact, it does not remove what we normally call pain, but it does remove suffering. So this is to say at the outer level of things like stress and reactivity. Dharma works very much with beginning for reactivity to settle down and begin to dissolve more and more and more emotional reactivity. And the sense of tension and stress that's associated with so many people's lives, this also is directly addressed by meditation and by the Dharma. These are considered to be like what you could call fringe benefits or something like this. The real profundity is that meditation and the Dharma addresses the very root of suffering. So there's many ways to teach the root of suffering, but I gave the definition of ignorance because that's very easy to understand, that with meditation we are addressing the quality of not knowing. So this is just at the most basic everyday life, of not being aware, of not understanding what it is that we're doing, of having very little consciousness of what it is we're doing, from the smallest details such as not aware that we're drinking a glass of water or spacing out when we brush our teeth, this kind of lack of awareness or ignorance. But also ignorance, the more profound level of ignorance, of not understanding that what we're doing is creating our own suffering. That not understanding that the way that we work with our minds, the way that we continually strengthen strong emotional reactivity and discursive thought, and that this leads to suffering. So meditation definitely works very, very directly with beginning to see what we're doing and beginning to be able to realize that we have a choice in any moment to either escalate our suffering or begin to have it diminish, which is to say, in any given moment, whether on the meditation cushion or in post-meditation, when we begin to perceive more and more clearly, because of our meditation practice, that we are hooked, or that we're beginning on a line of discursive thought which is disastrous in terms of strengthening habitual patterns of suffering.
So I hope the message was pretty clear, just reiterating it for all of us, that what you were sharing, that meditation is, what meditation does is that it hits at the root of suffering, because when we become mindful of our thoughts, when I become mindful of what I am feeling right now, when I am mindful of, okay, I am going to think about the past again, oh, I am going to think about the person again. So when we become aware of what we are doing all the time, then it tells us that we ourselves are fueling our suffering, because the more we ruminate and regurgitate on what has been, what is going on, and what will happen in future, so the more I ruminate upon it, the more I increase my suffering. And in Buddhist practice, it's like the more we become aware of the day and the nights, we they also recommend to look at it, all of it, like a dream. So the moment I uh, see myself going into repetitive patterns of loop again, for each one it would be different. That's why we call that each one has a definite thought patterns, emotional patterns in which we are stuck. We, again and again the thought goes there. For you it may be your mom, which comes to you again and again, or your spouse. For me it could be my child, or anything else, but the or my past. So the thought repeatedly goes there, and in our unawareness, I don't even know that I'm thinking. I fuel my suffering. It's like I'm giving petrol to my suffering. And when we become mindful of uh, our day to day living, when I'm coming back to the breath again and again, when I see, okay, I'm thinking again about the past, then I have a choice, because there is a space that is created between the thinking and the awareness of thinking. So, in this space, I have a choice whether I want to do this again to myself or not. So, because we see that when repeatedly we think about things which we don't even see clearly, and we think that my stories are the right ones, and everyone is thinking the same. My story, my version is the right one, so, and no one is right, and everyone is right. So there we get stuck, and in vicious loop of thinking we are caught. So it's important to realize why we are doing this. That's why I thought I'll share this. So now just sharing one more teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh, on when he shares about what is meant by coming back home to ourselves. When we talk about that I have swayed away and I want to come home to myself, so what does it mean? Let's hear this.
To go home to yourself, first of all, means you bring your mind back to your body. And you feel that you are truly there. You are not being pulled by either the past or the future, or your projects, your thinking, because thinking might cause us to lose ourselves. So the practice of mindful breathing can unify body and mind, and we can find ourselves established in the here and the now. And the practice of mindful breathing can stabilize the situation. It helps us to calm down, to be truly there, and to be aware of what is going on. We are not lost by what is happening. We are still ourselves. And it's like a house with several windows and doors. And if we open all the windows and doors in a time there is strong winds, well, the wind will come in and blow everything away. So going home is like shutting the window, shutting the door, so that the wind will not penetrate. And the eyes, the ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, they are windows. And we shut these windows. We don't look anymore, we don't listen anymore, we don't think anymore. We just follow our in-breath, out-breath, and we are comfortable in the house. And we may like to make a fire in the chimney to warm it up. And we feel comfortable with it. And that is what we should do every time we feel lost. We feel that we are no longer ourselves. We are being blown away by events. That is what the Buddha called going home to the island within. Close the 6 windows and stay inside with your breathing. And you will be calm, you will see more clearly. And when you feel safe, you clear, and you may like to open one window to see what is going on. This should be a practice taken by everyone when they don't feel like they are themselves. They
So what he was suggesting was that the practice that he was referring to, that should be taken by everyone. Uh, yeah. Um, Often in mystic tradition, six senses have been called enemies, and we wonder why. So because and mind is one of the sense, the sense mind, because whatever is coming from my senses, maybe I'm listening to a person, mind is actually interpreting it. So mind is also one of the senses. And what we usually do is we believe in our interpretations too much, like whatever I'm thinking is right. Whatever I'm feeling, yes, it happened with me, it is right, how can it be wrong? So that's why masters and mystics have said that do not believe your sense mind, because we are not sure of what we are perceiving and interpreting. That's not truth. That's not truth. And the example of this is like a rose flower. The way human beings look and perceive a rose flower is very different from what appears for a fly, or what appears for a monkey, or what appears for a dog. And the way it is created for us, in front of us, that it is a red rose flower with thorns and this and that, it's not the truth for the fly, it's not the truth for the monkey. So even physics tells us that the way we perceive is not the absolute truth. So be very wary of what you believe in, right? So don't take your sense perceptions so tightly. Hold them very loosely, like a dream. We don't trust our dreams. Like we don't cry out if I have a dream or a nightmare. We know when we know that it's a dream, then we become easy about it. Oh, it's a dream. So when I am thinking about a person and I have certain views about that person or a situation, don't think that it's the truth. Just regard it as dream. And what he was sharing was that to Buddha, or talked about taking refuge within. And when we talk about taking refuge within, it means shutting the six doors of senses. So I'm not thinking, I'm not going to listen or interpret anything. The voices or noises may come out, come in through your ears, because the ears are open all the time, but you're not interpreting it. You are not judging it, you are not perceiving it that way, making meaning out of it. You're not making meaning out of it. So you stay put with the breath, and that's what he was sharing. That's what is coming back home. Mind comes back home to the body when we cling to the breath. I'm aware of the in breath, I'm aware of the out breath, and it's so simple that we miss it. Breath is there with us 24/7, while we are walking, while we are doing anything. And slowly also to become aware, okay, I'm moving my hands, I'm speaking, I'm aware that I'm speaking. So the practice of cultivation of mindfulness, basically. Yeah. So let us stay with our breath. We'll do this for 10 minutes if that is okay, slowly increasing our time from 5 to 10 minutes. And if our attention wanders away in the thoughts or feelings, or my stories in the head, we will just bring them again back to the breath. Nothing doing, just bringing them again to the breath, being aware of the breath. Yeah? So it's 7:31. We'll stop at 7:40. I'll let you know when to stop. So just clinging to the breath, just staying with the breath. Just continuing to stay with the breath, not buying into thinking or feeling or anything right now, just staying put with the breath. Bringing the mind home to the body with a thread of breath. Everything is okay in this moment. And if thoughts come, feelings arise, they're just a dream. We are dreaming all the time and bringing attention back to breath. Impressions may be there, thought impressions, impressions of past and future, but we are not going to buy into all that. Just being home with the body. So we'll do this for 1 more minute, then we'll end. Staying, clinging to the breath. So this is our dharma. We often talk about following the dharma, and when we are too much lost in the stories of our head, we are actually not practicing the dharma. It may sound weird. We are doing that all the time. So, staying true to ourselves, staying home, bringing the mind home to the body, using the thread of breath, is something which each one of us, not only people who are very special and spiritually inclined, no, not for that, but if we really have to want to have a simple, uncomplicated life, it's very much essential that we bring the mind back to the body again and again, as much as possible throughout the day, while we are walking, cooking, doesn't matter what we are doing, to be aware of what we are doing. Yeah, and also to see that when we go into the discursive thought patterns, we actually propagate our suffering, and we have a choice not to do that. Not taking things, as Mother says, that human beings are the most miserable beings on this planet because we take ourselves too seriously. My story, my people, my family, all that goes on round and round and round. We make it so solid and real for us. So we have a choice. We can just regard it all as a dream, and then whatever has to be done in that moment will be done, in a calm state of mind. So anything anyone wants to share?
Yeah, good morning, Monica.
Hi Ritu.
Hi.
Good morning.
So one thing I want to ask you that when we are just sitting in silence and trying to meditate, so till now I was aware of the five senses. So the sixth sense which you talked about today, the mind. So it's very difficult for me to like even when I'm just concentrating on the breath that I'm inhaling, exhaling. The mind does wander off, but even when I think it's not wandering off, it's still thinking of the breath. So even when I'm thinking of the breath, that okay, breath is coming in, it's slow, it's mild, good. I'm just thinking about the breath. So that's also the mind in action. I mean, it's difficult for me to kind of, um, think of a situation wherein I think that my mind is not working and the mind is still working. I mean, I don't know whether I'm ever in a situation where the mind is not working. I mean, even when I'm thinking about the breath, I'm happy with myself that I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm thinking about my breath, but still it's the mind which is thinking.
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, Ritu, when we stay with the breath, we are just aware of the breathing. We don't have to think about the breathing.
Mm.
That's one thing.
But
But I
even
totally
awareness,
understand, yeah, what you are saying, that you see that as if, a machine is running and the
yeah,
machine is not coming to stop. It's running, running, running. So it's, if the
yeah.
mind is like a machine,
Hmm.
even when I'm trying to sit with the breath, the mind is talking about the breath. Is that what you mean?
So even when, yeah, I mean, even if I tell myself, okay, now I'm not thinking about anything else, I'm thinking about the breath. But the word thinking and awareness, the difference between the two is
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a little confusing.
Yeah. So when this thing comes, when you sit silently for your silent time, quiet time, and you see the churning of the mind in this manner, just become aware that okay, the mind is churning.
Mm,
Nothing doing or nothing more is required of you. So
yeah,
if the machine is running, say mind
yeah,
is a machine, and you see that when I'm sitting with the breath, the machine is still running.
yeah,
So just we just have to become aware that
mm,
the
mm,
machine is still running. Just that.
yeah. But even when I'm aware that okay, now I'm not thinking about anything, even that's a thought.
That's a thought, exactly. So become aware of that thought.
Okay.
Yeah. So my job is to become aware of all the thoughts that arise,
Mm-hmm.
and as they arise, to let them go also, not to begin to, kind of rush into thinking. But if,
Mm-hmm.
say, as you said, this, that I'm not thinking is a thought. So
Yeah.
a parallel consciousness in you is aware, okay, this thought is there. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And back to the breath.
Mm-hmm.
So this is beautiful what you share. So whatever arises, I am aware that it arises, and then I come back to the breath, come back to the breath, come back to the breath. Not giving it too much meaning or importance.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Right. But this introduction to the mind as a sixth sense is nice. It's a new thing I've realized today. Otherwise, we just talk about the five senses. So yes, mind is also always working like the other senses.
yeah. Because it is interpreting the senses,
Yeah.
whatever incoming information, that's what I do with the mind. I interpret it in my way, and I
Mhm.
take it to be real. That's where we are caught.
True.
We believe in it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. At times we think that if we don't take the mind as us, is there anything? I mean, we kind of associate so much with the mind that we are the mind, we are the thoughts, and distinct. I mean, putting a distinction between ourselves and the thoughts and mind is very difficult.
It
And
is
I think that's
difficult.
when
Yeah,
we need to be constantly aware.
yeah, yeah. Actually, the true masters have said the true nature of the mind, which we truly are, our essence,
Mm-hmm.
which we cannot ever separate from, is this quality of consciousness or awareness. See,
Mm-hmm.
even if you are suffering, for example, say you are totally unconscious and suffering, hmm? Something in you knows the content of your story, right?
Yeah,
That knowing aspect is our true nature.
yeah. This is beautiful. Like even when we are like right now at a particular age, the consciousness was there when we were a kid. It was there when we were growing up. It was there in pain and happiness. So there's something which is always seeing and observing and knowing.
Exactly, exactly. And mother says that know that as yourself. Know
Mm.
that knowing and consciousness as yourself. Because things are impermanent, things, thoughts come and change, stories come and change, people come in our life, they go away, it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
So if I base that impermanent happening of things all the time as my base, then
Mm.
imagine standing on a carpet which is moving all the time, how would you feel?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And no
Right.
wonder that we suffer because of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to know the nature of things, that they are changing all the time, just like my thoughts, feelings, sense perceptions, stories in the head, they're changing all the time. The body is undergoing change all the time. And we cannot hold anything as our ground. And to be okay with groundlessness. You may have a best friend, best brother, sister, whom you may have, held as your ground for many, many years. But time for moving. The person wants to move away. What would you do? If you're not okay with groundlessness, you will suffer. So to know the basic nature of things and people and situations, that it is impermanent, it will sooner or later change, and I will be left with no ground. So not to make impermanent things my ground, and being okay with groundlessness, being okay with things changing. Because when we clutch to things, we suffer.
Yeah. It's very difficult. We always keep clinging and clutching and finding a base. So being baseless sounds beautiful, but seems difficult to achieve.
I think difficult, yes, Ritu, because we have been used to clinging all the time. So it's like old habits die hard. So in the beginning, we see ourselves, imagine that I'm going to leave I smoke and I'm leaving cigarette. again and again my hand will go to the cigarette. Again and
Mm-hmm.
again my hand. So this is just because I'm habituated to it. But that's not my true nature because I'm suffering. I'm restless. Restlessness is not our true nature. That's why we
Mm-hmm.
feel so uneasy about restlessness. But when I become aware of restlessness, then something shifts. Now I am aware that I'm restless.
Yeah.
So this is what masters say, just to parallelly be aware of whatever state of mind you are in. Just be
Mm-hmm.
conscious of it. Mother also says, become conscious of your movements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now anger is arising. Okay, I am aware anger is arising. I am aware I'm going into the past again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just that gives us the ability to choose and not to create further suffering.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then life becomes very simple. We have the possibility to live a
Yeah.
very uncomplicated life.
Mm-hmm.
Moment to moment, moment to moment. No baggage of past and no worries of future because we don't know how long we are going to be here. Death is lurking round the corner for each one of us.
Right.
So why to carry so much of weight? Little children are very good examples of being in the moment. They somehow their minds have not yet formed in that full manner
Mm-hmm.
as adults. So they are moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
We see
Jumping
that.
around.
Yeah, yeah. अभी लड़ाई कर ली उसी फ्रेंड के साथ और नेक्स्ट मोमेंट उसी के साथ खेल रहे दे डोंट हैव
Mm-hmm.
एनी बर्डन but we adults are like, how can I play with you? 5 minutes ago I had a fight with you. How can I? So we carry, we make a kind of a
Mm-hmm.
bad use of our
Yeah, and we get
mind.
so much used to it, carrying all these burdens
We
and
get used to it.
clinging
Yeah.
on to things, and not carrying burdens and not clinging seems unusual.
Unusual, exactly. Yes. Just because I'm habituated to the old pattern. So if I'm smoking cigarette all the time as long as I can remember, now not having cigarette in my hands will appear very weird.
Yeah.
As if I'm missing something. But it's just because I'm habituated to holding a cigarette. Just that. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the daily life, thinking that, okay, I'm comfortable and safe. I have a house to live every day. There's much income coming in. So that's also like grounding ourselves to something. But it feels so much better because we are so much used to grounding ourselves.
Yeah.
But the mystics and saints and the fakirs and all, they must be not grounded on this thing also, taking each day as it comes and each moment as it comes.
Yeah. हिंदी में एक वर्ड होता है, I think you would know, उदासीन.
Mm-hmm.
So udasin is, although it appears very udas and sad, but it's a good word, and I think your dad only once discussed this with me. Udasin means to be seated a little above, away from the worldly happenings,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you're not going to find happiness out in that material world,
Yeah.
which includes people and life situations.
Mm-hmm.
So once I am convinced that I cannot base this changing world for my happiness, then I am hopeless from the world in one manner. That's why udasin comes. That I
Mm-hmm.
don't have any hopes from the world to give me happiness. Then I turn within and find the source of happiness in me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to the word asakti.
Hmm. And asakti is also this clinging aspect, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Virak virakti is what we are looking at, no?
Exactly. Yes, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Disenchantment.
Virakti from asakti. Yes, disenchantment. Yeah, beautiful. Yes. And once I know, once I am convinced that, yeah, I cannot expect even my child to give me back some happiness, then you know what happens? Then I become sole in charge of my own happiness. You know, I say, okay, let me take the charge and responsibility of finding lasting joy and happiness because I know I cannot trust all that. So that's truly liberating. On one hand, to the emotional part, it may appear, oh my God, you know, what's happening? I can't trust anyone. But on the other hand, it makes you responsible that, okay, I cannot trust anyone, not even my child. So whatever now I will do, I would not do in a hope for return.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's for the joy of giving or joy of sharing that I do, but I'm not expecting anything in return because that's not the nature of the world. Samsara, I'm not going to get any happiness from here. So even if happiness comes for a moment, I take it as a prasad and move on. You know, not that wanting, you know, that I gave you, so why aren't you giving me? Yeah, she will not give you. So what would you do? Keep crying all the time.
Mm.
So, knowing betrayal as a part of life, knowing that you can't trust people as a part of life, because we are dreaming all the time, we don't know what's happening. So, I feel, you know, I personally felt a feeling of a strong sense of liberation when I realized that, wow, I really cannot trust anyone.
Mhm.
You know, I can't trust anyone for giving me happiness. So, let me take charge of my happiness. That is what I can do. And then in your relationships also you free the other of this demand of that he or she is supposed to give you happiness. So the other
Yeah.
is also free, you know, you can do whatever your path takes ahead. So disenchantment that Sulakshana ji talked of, virakti, I think
Mhm.
it's a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Yeah. And
But
when
not
I'm
easy.
not easy.
Doesn't come so
Yeah.
easily.
And just the fact that I'm used to being enchanted. You know, when I'm sitting with the breath, as we were discussing, I am enchanted to every thought that comes. You know, I'm sitting with the breath, and a thought comes, appears very glittery, very juicy, and I'm enchanted. You know, go there. Then another comes, you know, I'm enchanted again, I go there. So once I am totally convinced through my experiences that no thought is ever going to give me happiness, then I can stay put with the breath. So, as Kabir says, run as far as you can. Okay, run. You go in every direction that you want to. Ultimately, you will have to come back home to yourself. So, now when thoughts have become disenchanting for me, it's very easy to sit in meditation. The world has betrayed me, my siblings, my father, mother. You know, no one I can trust for being a ground. Now it's good space to meditate. So sit on the cushion and meditate. Yeah. Udasin, as we were saying. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think not just others, I think our own thoughts, our own illusions also betray us at every moment.
Beautiful, yes.
And I think we really have to get disenchanted with that. You know, disenchanted with, at least with my life, I've seen it. Disenchantment with people or how they have treated or whatever has happened is still not that difficult. But disenchantment with my own thoughts and my own beliefs, that is what is tougher.
Beautiful. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is what I find that the only way out for me is to just offer it to the divine. Every time it comes, offer it to the divine. Every time, offer it to the divine. You know, disenchantment also will be brought about with grace.
Mm.
We can only, we can only ask or whatever and pray. Like it's बहुत जन्म बिछड़े थे माधो जन्म ये तेरे नाम.
Mm.
We feel like that, you know, we say that, we listen, but we still want to hang on to our conditioning, which is just my feeling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was listening to talk last week, and I'll just share it here if we have time.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so there was a group of 4 5 men, and they were in Mathura. So this must be some incidents of around 100 years back, and they were all a little drunk, maybe not a little, but quite drunk. So they wanted to go to Agra through the river Yamuna. So they got into a boat and they started rowing, and they kept rowing the whole night, rowing, 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 rowing. And when the sun rose, they thought now they must be in Agra by now. But then they got down and they asked few people, and they said this is Mathura, and they were shocked. You know, they couldn't believe that they've been rowing the whole night and they're still in the same place from where they started. So one of the person was who was seeing them, he said that you still have the anchor there. So the boat was not moving. You were just rowing and the boat was not moving. So I think that's what happens with us also. You know, we get so attached and so enchanted by everything, and we are at the same place only, but then we keep struggling to move on and on and on and on. But then end of the day, probably we are at the same place. So at the end of the story, you know, there was this line which said, कश्ती खुदा पे छोड़ दे, खूंटे को तोड़ दे. So it was interesting to listen to it. Like
Beautiful.
Lakshmana ji mentioned about the grace.
Mm.
So I think even, yes, being so virakt with everything is also has to come by the grace only.
Yeah, yeah. And Mother says that grace is 24/7 present with us, just like uh, water is present for a fish.
Mm-hmm.
So we are never away from grace. You know, we are drenched in, that's what Kabir, you know, laughs about, that we are drenched in grace and we don't know. Just like space, you know, we are drenched in space, all from everywhere, space, space, inside space, space, space. Where is space not? So just
Mm-hmm.
like that, grace,
Mm-hmm.
no inch of this existence would be possible without divine grace. And it's not away, you know, we are drenched in it. Just that I have to become aware that, wow, you know, I was swimming in grace and I didn't know that. So to have that faith that I am swimming in grace, whether I feel it or not, because many times we don't feel it in the way we would like to.
Yeah.
So to have that faith that whether I feel or not, the grace is omnipresent all the time. We are never away from it. So that was a beautiful story that you shared. Thank you.
And that was so beautiful how you put it,
Mm.
Monica, about grace. Really, grace is always there. We just have to be open to receiving it.
Yeah.
It's all our life. I think we are kind of looking at grace as something animate, you know, something tangible. And that's why we are not able to make ourselves aware of it.
Mm.
It's only when awareness sets in that we realize that it was always grace.
Mm.
The fact that I'm here, the fact that I'm listening to you all is such big grace.
Mm. Yeah.
And it reminds me of, you know, a very old bhajan. I mean, I used to sing since I was a kid. So I always kind of connect to that. And I remember that, you know, where it says, Ram ras barse re manwa, Ram ras barse, tu kyu chipa oat mein pagle bhijan ke dar se. That's what we always do. You know, we are trying to stay in sheltered lives, cloistered, safe, in the safety of our mind. कि भीग न जाए कहीं. But once we step out and जब हम भीगते हैं, It's such a beautiful feeling. So I think this is what I feel, that just when we let go, then that grace ki bhigne ki feeling is just so awesome.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Kabir has the thing that you shared, exact same, almost similar lines when he says, Ram naam ki loot hai, loot sake tu loot, पाछे में
Yes,
पछताएगा जब प्राण जाएंगे छूट. Yeah. So let us,
absolutely.
yeah. So wishing us all a beautiful week ahead and staying mindfully with the breath, aware of whatever we are doing as much as possible, and enjoying as uh, every moment, every day as it comes. We don't have much time, so enjoy. Yeah, wishing everyone good day. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
thank you.
God
Thank
bless
you.
you
Thank
all,
you.
Bye.
Bye.
It's
everyone.
not going to stay
Thank
with
you.
us today.
Thank you. Bye bye.